Well, hi. It's day one of our April soft sharpening seminars. I got a full house today. 6 students. We are taking apart saws, and we're about to start cleaning them and all the little hidden details involved therein, like using canning wax to remount the saw back onto the spine, how to release your frozen saw nut. That's always, have you ever had a frozen saw nut you needed to release one?
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, well, we're about to get into all of that. So day one of our Saw Sharp April Saw Sharpening Seminar. Loads of fun already. How about that, Roger? You just become a dentist. You're working on teeth. You guys are all over the cleaning. Yeah, looking good. You got your saw cleaned to your satisfaction there, got all the rust off the plate?
Yep, yeah, it's cleaned. This ain't rust. That's just the pits that's left.
That's the black staining left behind, but it won't affect the performance of your saw.
No.
So, all right, Dwayne, well done.
No, it looks pretty good.
Cool.
There you go.
All right, you want to go back to the start here?
Or take a baby step, I should
Watching
say.
that side of the file.
All right, yeah, remember your air gaps off a little bit there, just
I found that,
move your fingers.
maybe-
Move that file out, there you go, there you go, that's locked in, right there.
Like that.
Okay, move it over.
That way, like I had 2 fingers.
Okay,
on the
good,
bottom.
you're nice and loose with this hand.
So I'm pushing down with my thumbs.
All right, your air gap's getting a little off there.
Like that. One less finger taking a beating.
Excellent. It gets me, it gets my shoulder after a while.
Make sure you're in there.
There we go.
Okay. You're gripping up a little bit low on the file. Do you want to actually bring that back a little bit?
Looks good.
Yep. You're about 1.5 inches, 2 inches out. All right, bring it back.
Yeah, we'll go this way.
All right, so the students are coaching each other, and I found that when they coach each other, they're able to learn more from the same instruction that the student they're coaching has received. And when that happens, it really drives home the teaching point. Today, what we're doing is file placement and using the thumb at the tip of your file to dictate how the wrist of the file locks into the gullet. So, pretty important teaching moment here.
Okay.
And now the coaches have switched,
Yeah, you're doing good.
and
I have a tendency to
yeah,
want-
this is
I wanna
pretty
get home.
good stuff. This is where the real learning curve takes place on mistakes that would normally not be caught if students didn't check out themselves and see how their peers go through the same process of file holding and placement.
Keep your thumb consistent. I've been trying to count,
Find
so
a
I don't go ahead.
Doing these dry run rehearsals
Fluid motion.
really pay huge dividends because students, by the time, before they even take their first stroke
Shift your whole
of
body.
sharpening, they've mastered point of view, sight picture, body English, how to stand, how to point your file, all the little tricks on how to get that file accurately placed.
It's just don't want.
So here we are in the coaching process again, only this time brush stroking the tooth line. What each coach is looking for is whether or not the student can reveal fresh metal from the gullet to the tip, as opposed to rolling the file to the left or rolling the file to the right. Now, why is it important to focus on this tooth that's set away from you? Because that's not the tooth that's doing the sharpening. The tooth adjacent to it is the one doing the sharpening, all right? That's the one that you're putting a cutting edge on. But here's the deal, with the visual cue, if you can see what you're doing from gullet to tip, and you get consistency there, because the cross-section of a file is an equilateral triangle, you're having the desired effect on the tooth that's actually doing the cutting, all right? Now, this is with properly shaped teeth. That's the caveat. Knowing how to reshape a tooth is something that we address later on in the course. But using my saw filer's reference chart, this conforms with sharpening order of operations, where you're blending, assessing, shaping, setting, joining, and dry fire. And now we're at the initial phase of sharpening, which is the brush stroke And here we are on day 2 in the afternoon. That's where we're at. And the student coaching themselves has everything to do by avoiding stovetop learning, as if the student's on an island unto himself. He's getting no feedback from anybody else. So that's why we do coaching, and it pays huge dividends.
I'm using too much of the file.
Oh, that's beautiful. Do it once more with feeling.
With feeling, okay.
You have successfully jointed your plate, Roger. And here we are on day 4, and all these skills are coming to fruition. Everybody by now is sharpening their vintage saws that they brought. Various stages of shaping, brush stroking, taking the sharpening stroke. We've got hammer setting going on. So we're totally on track. This is exactly what we hope to achieve on day 4, is by getting the order of, try to hold on to my camera here, getting the order of operations in sequence and practical application. And there you have it, folks. Day 4 of the saw sharpening seminar. Starting a handsaw cut can be a bit problematic because we have all these bad habits to unlearn. So the key here is to give yourself a couple of violent jerking actions to start that curve, unlike a back saw. And then floating the saw through the cut for about a few strokes, and then you can start getting it. Okay, now we're going to retension this saw, and note how Jacob is holding it down with about 3 or 4 psi on a flat surface this bench top. And he's got his thumb and his forefinger clasping the underside of the saw back so that he can feel the shifting movement as he retentions. All right, Jacob, go ahead and give it a couple of taps there above the heel. All right, that's good. Did you feel it shift at all?
Just a little bit.
Ever so slightly. We're only looking for about a 64th, maybe a 32nd. Now you're going to do the toe. All right. Did you feel it shift?
Not very much on the toe.
That's all right. As long as we feel it shudder. Now you're going to assess it. All right. How does it look?
It's very close to straight.
All right. We still have some
A
truing to
gentle
do.
curve all the way
But
across.
before you move on through with the truing process, we're going to retention it in between each step. And here we are on day 5 of the April saw sharpening seminar. We've got some saw handle replacement surgery. We've got Dave here completing the work on his number 9 precision tenon saw. We have Dr. Gary of Mayo Clinic, B-52 bomber pilot on top of that, exercising his hammer set with extreme precision on one of his vintage saws. And here we have Dave, who just floated out his handle and is putting his saw together. Looks like he and Roger are going over the 12-inch hybrid saw that Roger built during the seminar. Here is Dave's handle, where he's putting into practice some floating techniques to get a good slip bit between his plate and back assembly and the handle. And that leaves Dwayne here, who has probably done the best job hammersmithing a plate I've ever seen at one of these seminars for learning a brand new skill. Right now he's dotting the teeth on one of his vintage back saws that he's about to bring up to speed. So today is really a pretty incredible display of all 6 students putting into practice everything they've learned here at the seminar, which makes me feel good because real proud of Roger here. That's a really fine tooth line. He sharpened it up entirely on his own. I tend to jump in because I want to make sure that they leave with a bad X standard. All right, Roger wasn't having it. He did this entirely on his own, so it's pretty awesome, Roger.
For practical application, and what you have to do is you can't be afraid of mistakes. You have to learn from your mistakes. So, and you get plenty of opportunity for that over the 5 days of this class. So, couldn't be happier. My saws are happier. My wife will be happier because I'll be less grumpy. So, it's all good.
All right, thanks, Gary. I appreciate that.